work session restarted.
Okay, Town Controller, Mr. Nicole, here is going to speak about the Comac Ambulance Corps and their wanting to borrow money.
Good morning, Mr. Supervisor, Councilman. Comac Ambulance, Comac Ambulance District, which spans both Smithtown and Huntington, and you're all aware, is looking to renovate their headquarters located on Burr Road, which is physically located in the town of Huntington. Their estimate is they need approximately $5.2 million to renovate their headquarters. I'm told that this would qualify for a 20-year bonding or borrowing. The method of borrowing hasn't been determined yet. We're not sure if we'd have to use traditional public finance to accomplish this, or if we might be able to use, Huntington has an LDC, which is a local development corporation, but there's some state controllers' opinions that we're reading into now that may prohibit that kind of a transaction. But in essence, of the $5.2 million, the district is broken up approximately one-third, two-thirds. One-third is Huntington's responsibility, and approximately two-thirds is the town of Smithtown's. So that's. I don't know if anybody has any questions.
Well, I think even if the town of Smithtown were not willing to do it, I think you indicated to me that Huntington wants to do it.
It seems they're interested in one of two things: either taking on the whole bond issue through local finance, less so that than going through the LDC. I
guess my point is, the Comac Ambulance Corps wishes to rehabilitate one building, build a new building for its center.
Well, it's all one building.
Oh, it's all one.
It's all one building.
On Burr Road?
On Burr Road, yeah.
But nonetheless, the town of Huntington wants to do this, correct?
Yes,
okay.
They're on board with this, and they're looking to see that we're on board with it.
Okay.
But
This is an expansion of that building, renovation of that building?
Footprint-wise, I'm not sure. I don't think so. I think there's going to be new construction, but it's going to be because they're going to raise a portion of the existing structure and rebuild it. That's the most economical way to do it, according to the architect. I don't know if it adds to their square footage so much.
Are they adding ambulances, or what's the purpose of it, or just age?
The major objective is one, there I think are some safety issues. Two, I don't think they're up to code in certain parts of the building. I think they have sleeping quarters for some of the paramedics inside the garages. Another issue is they can't store all of their ambulances in their existing garages.
Okay.
That creates an issue because apparently they have to take the medications in. They can't be left out in the freezing cold. So there's always a chance somebody could run out. That's a problem that they're contending with.
That's 5.2 million?
5.2 million.
Two-thirds is ours?
Two-thirds is ours. That number could go as high as 6 million,
Okay.
depending on how you look at how it's costed.
It's going to be approximately a cost of about $4 million to us.
Yes.
When do they want to start that project?
They're looking to start this ASAP.
No, but they only have a plan or a shovel in the ground, so I mean.
Well, they have architectural drawings. They're looking for a commitment from the town so that they could go and then further enhance their drawings. It's approximately costing about $100,000 to get the drawings and the specs up to something they could bid on to further refine the construction costs.
So by the time they do it and everything else, you're looking at 2013 probably, not 2012.
Mr. Ralph, who's the architect, seems to think he can have construction
Bid out, done plans, bid out and everything else and start this year. He's got to be a miracle worker. It's impossible.
Okay.
That's my opinion. That's only me.
But nonetheless, the question here is...
I'm just trying to figure out what year for the borrowing, that's all.
Okay, but the question is, we have to do it.
Yeah, of course,
Yeah.
you have to do it, you don't have a choice.
But it's located up Bell Road, which is clearly in the town of Huntington. However, the Carmack Ambulance services Smithtown
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
primarily.
Generally, I guess the area would be somewhere in the Pines of the Smithtown area.
think they
all
do the Pines,
go down
yeah.
to Town Line Road,
Okay.
running along that side of Veterans Highway.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
But they are negotiating to get the best rate right now, or the best manner of funding.
Well, again, their intent, Huntington's intent on using this local development corporation, being told that the rate would be the same if they went through local finance, which is about 2.8%. Our bond counsel doesn't, and our bond advisor doesn't agree with that figure. He thinks it would be higher, to the tune of somewhere around 4%. It's a significant increase.
To go the
what's wrong?
traditional way.
What's wrong with the LDC? The state controller says?
The state controller doesn't like the LDC for things that could be run through public finance, largely because LDCs are intended for industrial development. The other reason he states in his opinion, which I only read briefly, was that he says that the municipalities are running up costs in a way of not going out for bidding. They're not following Wick's law. These are ways to get around typical public finance issues, and he's pointed some of those out in his opinion.
Prevailing wage is a part of that?
Prevailing wage is not included in the 5.2 million number. That would be without prevailing wage.
That's using the LDC. So if you do a prevailing wage, it's going to be drastically a lot more.
About 25% more.
Which would be a big difference for us.
Yes.
But in any event, you
Yeah,
have to, however it's funded, you're looking at 60% of whatever the bill is going to be.
Bill is going to be.
Right.
Okay.
What period, what time period that bond would be over?
I'm being told it's a 20-year, it would be a 20-year bonding.
Thank you. You can stay there. You don't have to remind me anymore. Okay, who wants to begin? You want to discuss this memo you fellow sent to me
Okay, this is,
regarding the borrowing of
right.
money for the highway department?
Well, the highway department, we have Glenn here. We spoke to Glenn about the possibility of exploring funding the $5 million in 2012 over and above what we've already budgeted for increased road reconstruction. So Glenn, if you want to show us what that would accomplish.
Well, do you mind if I just, before he speaks?
No, not at all.
I was going to do this anyway before you sent me this memo. We've averaged about approximately $7 to $8 million each year since 2009 road work. 5.5 in 2009, 5.5 million for road improvements, 1 million for curb improvements, plus $730,000 of chip funds. That comes out to almost $7 million. In 2010, we budgeted $5 million for road improvement, $2 million for curbs, aprons, and sidewalks, and $730,000 in chips, which is highway improvement funds from the state. In 2011, the same, 5.65 plus 2 million plus 730. And 2012, 4.9 million for road improvements, 1 million for curbs and aprons and sidewalks, and 1 million for sidewalks plus chips. And here's what I don't understand why you need the borrowing. In 2010, the highway superintendent underspent that budget by almost $600,000. Underspent it. And most of the money that was spent on curbs and sidewalks, etc., and concrete. 2009, the same situation occurred, although that was not him. In 2011, $250,000, if not more, was not expended at the end of the year. Most of that money went into curbs and sidewalks contrary to the road agreement that is signed by law. And so the highway superintendent did not follow the legal aspects of how that money would be spent. Now, I'm going to use the word sustainability and sustaining taxes. We're already on notice going into this year that there's a $1 million bill due for in 2013 for pensions over and above the normal pension. So it's $1 million. Remember, we're supposed to be under the guise of a 2% tax increase. Highway taxes have increased 67% over the last 10 years, 30% over the last 5 years. Not sustainable given the 2% cap, which that is part of. We've mitigated those expenses in the highway department by application of surplus. In 2012, we applied 4.25 of the general fund, which mitigates increases in highway taxes. In 2011, 3.25, in 2010, 3.25. If we were to continue on that path, there would only be 3 to 3.5 years left of surplus in the general fund, which is needed, as you well know, for bonding, et cetera, et cetera. So any bonding is going to impact the overall town budget very, very dramatically. The sheets that I've not given you here tell you that at the end of the borrowing of $10 million in 2 years, you'll pay something like, Lou, can you bear it out, $1.5 million in interest, is that the number?
Let's see.
Borrowed at a 3% rate. It's
No, it's
1.2
million,
for the first
2,774,000 total
That's just
for
in
the 2 years,
interest alone.
for the 2 years. I mean, for the 2 borrowings.
Okay.
The two borrowings would be about 1.3 million for the first bond given out or issued in 2012, and then approximately another 1.5 million for the bond issued
Yeah,
in
that's on the last
2013.
page of this, the
And
total.
so for $2.5 million, you've received no asphalt, no concrete, no anything. But the fact I want to drive home, whether I support this or not, is it's not sustainable. Not if you continue to run a highway department the way it's run now. The highway superintendent can't just arbitrarily decide how he's going to spend money, which is budgeted by line item, and then budgets are not merged. Leave $1 million and change, $1.5 million on the table in 2010, not spent. Fund balances are down. There's no reason that they should increase because the economy isn't improving. I don't know how this becomes sustainable at all. In fact, I was looking at what I had recommended for a budget. I'm now thinking that maybe some of those smaller items ought to be taken right out of the existing budget and not on them. So, you know, when I look, and I'm sorry he's here, but I'm not sorry he's here, but I do want to tell you. When you look at a highway department that has 47 heavy equipment operators, I asked, are there 47 heavy pieces of equipment? Out of a force of 142 people, some 18 are laborers, everybody else has a title. Not sustainable. We have about 142, about 60 in the parks, and maybe 15 in traffic, forgetting the MSF. There's no integration, there's no consolidation of those forces. I guess what I'm saying to you is to do what you're thinking and contemplating doing, it will not be sustainable for the public at large. And you'll never even come close to the 2% tax cap. It just can't be done, it's that simple.
Well,
I mean,
I'd like to hear from the board before you speak, please.
well, the reason for asking this is we've we're actually getting nothing. You haven't addressed any sidewalks at all, correct?
That's correct.
There's 1,700, 2,000 complaints?
Let me explain why we need the extra money. Hold on, Glenn, you're gonna have to come on. My name is Glenn Jorgensen. I'm the superintendent of highways, town of Smithtown. The reason why I gave back that money my first year was my first year I was elected into office, and I had to make a lot of changes to get the workforce synchronized. And last year was the hurricane that did us in for downtime. It was a month of downtime I had that I couldn't put in pavement. To borrow this money, first of all, it will get rid of our 1,700 sidewalk complaints that I'm on notice for, and the 6,000 sidewalk complaints that I have that I'm not on notice for. Now, in the 2 years, those sidewalks complaints would be gone. And I ended up with the sidewalks last year. The Parks Department did them historically over the last 20 years, and then I got stuck with the sidewalks. So, with borrowing that money, if I don't fix the roads that I could fix this year, next year or the year after, those roads will have to be reconstructed. And so it'll go from $180,000 a mile to over $300,000 a mile if I have to reconstruct those roads. So saving them now is the right thing to do. And I gave the board, I believe, my layout on how I was going to spend that money.
I don't have it.
I don't
You
have
got it, by the way.
I don't have it.
Okay, and I want to tell you, I am upset by the whole process here. I was never informed of anything that you have recommended, okay?
All right.
Fair enough? Now, I just want to address one of your complaints. When the budget is produced, it's specific to what it says per each item. I want to correct you, you were not stuck with the, let me finish
You have a
talking.
copy?
I didn't say
The
it.
sidewalk.
Copy of what he gave us?
You wanted it in your department.
Maybe on my desk,
You
but I'm not
requested
sure.
that transfer. You did.
I didn't see.
I did not.
You most certainly did. Number two, 2012, there's $1 million allocated for sidewalks, and that's meant for sidewalk repair, not for you to incorporate it into your regular road construction. In 2011, the same thing, $1 million for sidewalk repair, but you chose not to repair the sidewalks. You chose them to put them part of your road improvement, contrary to the contract you signed.
Well,
Okay?
if I'm there redoing a road, doing the curbs and the sidewalks, I cannot just neglect that sidewalk that's there that I see is in disrepair and go to a complaint. When I redo the road, I do it completely. I do whatever sidewalk is broken, whatever curb is broken. Sidewalk, it costs about 40% more. Concrete work costs about 40% more when I do a road. Not just paving, I have to add about another 40% for concrete work, for repair.
When you contracted with the town, and you spell out the contract as to how you're allocating the money, it comes out to the exact amount that's been budgeted. Correct? If you find, that's why highway law says you went into contract. If you find that you can't meet that contract, then it's your obligation to come to the board and say, I need to amend my budget, meaning you either do less of what you were doing, okay, but not to just go out and spend it, and take money that was allocated for those road sidewalk complaints, set aside for those complaints, and incorporate it into your regular repair budget. It's wrong to do, you did it. And that, plus the fact, we're a transparent group here. One of those allocations has now engendered a potential lawsuit, okay? So why would I, as a fiscal conservative, want to borrow $10 million, 2-point-something million above that in interest? Why?
Because if you don't address these problems now, it's gonna cost you 2 or 3-fold later on. Now's the time to correct it.
You know, we had the previous highway superintendent used to make the same complaint. He never moved, even thought about borrowing. Never even thought about borrowing. I
You
think it's-
offered to give him $5 million.
Yes, and I regretted that, and it never happened, okay? It's bad fiscal policy to borrow money for road repair. Bad fiscal policy. But as highway superintendent, you shouldn't care about that, you just want the money. But it's a town board that has to produce the budget to keep taxes tolerable here. When you
It's
tell
gonna
me,
cost you threefold if you don't address
maybe
these
it will
problems
and maybe
now.
it won't. When you tell me that we have to increase the budget by 800,000 a year for 15 years, that's unsustainable. That's all I can tell you.
Very well.
Now, anybody else want to be heard on this? The numbers speak for themselves. The numbers speak for themselves.
Well, then how do we?
I do
investigate
think that we have to address the problem somehow. The roads are in desperate shape.
Well, I'm not.
They have been,
sure
they have
that's
been in desperate shape, and they're getting worse.
true. Well, then I would ask you, then how do you intend to meet a reasonable, fiscally sound budget come 2013? How do you intend to do that?
What is this bond, what does this cost us? What is?
0.8 million.
No, I know, what would it cost
What's the
us
tax
per household?
implication?
What does it end up
Okay,
costing?
Per household starting in 2013, the increase would be about, per thousand, would be about $2.23. And if you consider an average household to be a $6,000 assessment, that would be $13.38.
So that's that number, $13 a year on
That's
highway
the,
tax.
that's the
Is that
increase.
$6,000 true, though? I've been hearing this for so many years. Is
Yeah,
that
it
$6,000,
is
is that reality?
Yes, true.
Yeah. I
But
think
you
it'd be a lot
shouldn't
more.
be you have to look at the totality of the budget, not the increase of 2013, so what does it come out to?
$13.
About
and change.
$13.38 a household, and that's only in 2013.
2013.
Right, then it goes to
2004.
27 the following year, right?
Yeah, $22.57.
And what is the impact on the overall budget? Pay attention for a second. Last year, and I don't know what I think the taxes went up, what, about $12, you guys remember better than I.
On what?
I thought it was
Highway?
19, I thought it was 19.
$19.
$19.
And that was an allocation of 4.25 million in reserve funds, okay? At the end of this year, there's 11.2 remaining, okay? If you allocate 2.5, you can see that it wipes it out, and you will not address the increases in the taxes. But now, think about the $1 million we have to pay for pensions, which has not been budgeted because we've been notified. Think about the fact that our estimates this year for fuel are going to go out the window, at least until July or September. For the highway superintendent to come in and say, I want to borrow $10 million and put the entire budget out of whack, I will tell you what will happen if the board insists on it. You will result in layoffs within the town. It's not sustainable. That's simple.
We're talking about it's not sustainable with no tax increases.
Well, the amount of tax increases certainly will pierce that cap dramatically, and you will indebt the town. You're already indebting them for 15 years. That $13 is $13 a year just for that borrowing, plus normal increases in highway department funding, raises for employees, health insurance increases every year. What was it this year? Do you remember?
I don't recall.
It was 5.3 increase every year, health insurance. So you just have the normal increase in just doing business without borrowing money. Now add the borrowing, the potential borrowing of the Comac Ambulance Corps. Put that borrowing on top, and you guys tell me how we can submit a budget to the public, even if we wish to pass the cap, that isn't going to rise to 5-6% increase in these times. Fiscally irresponsible.
Wow, does that pierce the 2% cap?
By itself, yes, it's probably in 2013, it's a 5.2% increase just on that fund alone. In the following years, it's much smaller because it's based on, you're looking at the previous year.
But the 2% is on the overall budget, right?
Overall
$100
budget.
million.
Right.
Yeah. So this by itself would not pierce the cap.
No, when you look at and it does, the reason why I presented it this way is because it does represent, the highway funds, the highway budget represents approximately 1/3 of the total budget, so
Right.
it is daunting. The COMAC project is, their budget last year was, or their tax levy was 942,000 as compared to, 29 million for highway funds. And it's if you look at it by itself, percentages wise, it could be deceiving. Dollar amounts, when you combine them all together, it's a much smaller increase for COMAC.
And I want to say another thing, and I'm being very straightforward here. I just sent you fellas a memo. The Parks Department, at the end of last year, had 5 openings. The Parks Department head said, I only want to fill 3 of them. So he takes the initiative to save 2 employees, which is a lot of money when you consider pensions and health costs and unemployment insurance. John Valentine lost a very expensive bay constable, or was he the?
Harbor master.
Harbor master. John went to the paperwork. He said, I'm not going to fill that position, I'm going to accomplish it. Highway superintendent doesn't do that. Every opening occurs, fill the position. It's not
That's
sustainable.
wrong. I have 3 or 4 positions right now that aren't filled.
Well, at the moment, but they're
That's
budgeted,
correct.
okay? And you have the ability to
I
fill
do.
them, okay?
And I have not.
It's not sustainable. What you're contemplating here, and I kept saying I will repeat that word, it's not sustainable. At the end of 10 years, you will have paid $1 million, $2 million, 8, was it, in interest? And what do you receive for that? What do you receive for 2.8 million in interest? How many roads can you pave with that?
If you wait a few more years, not many, because
Not many.
it's deteriorating beyond repair. I could repair them now, like I said, for $180,000 a mile. There are many roads that if we wait another 2 or 3 years, they'll have to be reconstructed at $300-something thousand a mile. So either you fix them now or you pay more later.
And that's the.
And then I came to the budget meeting, and I asked to transfer $1 million out of my paving, because I was ready to fix the concrete, and you didn't do that. You didn't transfer that money that I asked for.
Explain that further, I don't.
I came to the budget meeting in November.
Right,
I said, I would like
In
to take.
September.
In September. I would like to take $1 million out of my paving to get rid of these concrete complaints and sidewalks and liability things we have to put towards the concrete, and that wasn't addressed. So I'm stuck with
no, you're not
paving.
stuck with anything. You could have come to the board and amend your budget.
No, he did come to the board
He
at that
did.
meeting, and we all agreed, I think, at that meeting, that we would do that. It just hasn't been done on the books yet, at the open public hearing.
Explain it, when did that occur?
It was in September.
Yeah. And he did ask him, the board agreed that if you want to make that change, you can make that
Well,
change.
the board didn't make that agreement, did it?
No, but we can still can anytime.
See what troubles me, and you gave an excuse. Look, I don't want to fight with you. You said, oh, you were new, and you were revamping the department, and
Correct.
therefore you underspent the budget that you now want to fill with borrowing by $1,300,000.
Where did that $1 million go?
Goes into reserve funds, which is then used against the next year's budget.
So that's a good thing.
Well, I don't think it's a good thing to tax people and not spend the money. I don't think that's a good thing. When you tax people, you spend the money. You currently have got $180,000 for GPS program. Budget was adopted on the 20th. I have seen no progress on obtaining that.
Well, I've been working diligently with that,
Well,
trying
okay.
to incorporate our radios, which we have to change our radio system, in with the GPS.
I've said my piece, and that's where we're at. It's up to the board. If the board wants to borrow it, you need 4 votes to borrow the money.
Right.
I would like to take you all for a ride around our roads to see what they look like.
I think in fairness to the highway superintendent, this shouldn't be dumped entirely on him. We asked for, the board asked for his estimate. I mean, he didn't do this on his own.
No, I agree.
Right.
He
we
asked
him
for it, and he gave us back And that's why we're having this meeting, to discuss whether it's possible to do or not. And I think that's what we have to concentrate on.
But that's why I want to, you went to this year's budget, the 2013 budget, which is prepared at the end of this year. You're already $1 million down in the overall budget. The budget is $100,500,000, $100 million point five. Now you do 2% of that. 2% of that. It's how much?
200,000.
Two-
No,
2 million.
2 million, excuse me.
2 million, okay? 1 million of that is already gone.
Well, isn't that, I believe that's exempt from
It
the
is
cap?
exempt, yeah.
What is,
The pension.
The
Pensions,
okay.
pension and medical.
so then you have $2 million leeway for all these budgets. I know it's on the levy, but the levy is over the total budget.
See, I don't know how else you get this work done. Because we're making no progress.
No progress, we're losing.
No, you will make it, the $1 million a year for sidewalk repair, you refuse to do that.
No.
Let me finish. You didn't repair one sidewalk complaint with $1 million that was expressly put into the budget for that purpose.
That's not true.
It's not true?
No.
Okay.
I've done sidewalk repair complaints with that money.
To the tune of the million, you wiped out the million.
No, I didn't spend $1 million on sidewalk complaints. But when I do a road, do you want me to just pave the road and leave all the disrepaired sidewalk and just say, well, you didn't put a complaint in, so I have to overlook this? I'm there to complete that road.
You gave the
I
board a
finished the
road program, and you told the board what each road would cost. You signed the contract, and every one of us signed that contract. If you felt,
That's road, not sidewalk, not curb. That's to do the road, that's what it costs to pave it. That's correct.
okay, and you decided that you were not going to pave the road, you're going to use it on concrete, correct? And in 2010, you left $1,500,000 not spent.
That's correct.
Okay. Did you think about that road would need repair 10 years from now?
But
Look, I don't want to be hard on you. I just tell you, once again, it is not sustainable.
And to get
Well,
back-
let me ask you a question, though, to be fair. We wound up in this position because prior highway superintendents have done that for years. They
correct.
dump 2-inch lift on a road, they've done it for years and years.
Yeah.
And now these poor residents' sidewalks, aprons are in deplorable condition.
That's
And we're not addressing them. And all we're doing here is trying to find a way to be fiscally sound, to find a way to move forward to do this work.
And then also, I changed the asphalt bid and the specs on the asphalt. We get a better mix, and as maybe Mr. McCarthy knows, on Cambon Avenue, which was done in previous superintendents. It's falling apart already. The mix was,
No, they were definitely buying a bad mix prior
Bad
administrations.
mix.
Well, you reduce the wrap, so now you're getting a
That's
good road.
correct.
That's gonna last a lot longer.
and at almost a better price. You know, I've made steps in the right direction. I've changed a lot of things. Now it's time to put those things to work.
See, I think we're in a bit of a dilemma here. I refer back to what you said, Pat, about the parks superintendent. While it's commendable that he takes 2 people off the rolls and is operating with fewer people, the parks are suffering at the same time. We're at a point of diminishing returns. And this is the product of a lot of different circumstances.
But that's
The
not true,
economy,
Bob.
the bad mix in the past.
The Parks Department head made the decision, not through me, that he would operate with 2 people less. I guess he reviewed his department and says, I can do 2 people less. That doesn't happen anywhere else.
No, but what's happening is the parks are in terrible shape,
Well, I would
and they're not
suggest to
being
you,
repaired.
before you talk about borrowing $10 million, plus the 2 or 3 million for the Comac ambulance call, that you, what kind of a study was done on these roads in the first place? Did you do an in-depth study?
Let me explain one thing. Years ago, when we had the road program, we had 350 miles of road where it says do nothing, and 100 miles of road that said repair. Now we're totally opposite. Now I get on my nothing, 100 miles of road to do nothing, and 350 miles of road, you better do something. It turned around in the last 10 years or 15 years, that bad. We're on the opposite spectrum now.
But I'm asking you, was an in-depth study done of these roads?
Well, you did, not an engineer, so you have it, the
That's
roads that
correct.
need to be repaired.
That's
that are
correct.
in the worst condition.
That's right.
See, as Bob said too, it's kind of a dilemma. Commendable, I agree that Chuck did that, yet when we discuss work that needs to be done by Chuck, he'll espouse he doesn't have the people. That can't be. We either have to be honest with the public and tell them, look, we can't do this because of the tax levy and it's gonna stay stable, or we're gonna do it.
Well, I get a lot of calls from the residents daily. They see the difference since I've been elected, and they thank me for the hard work that we do. They actually see it, and they call all the time saying, I see the difference. The year before I got elected, the roads were swept twice. Last year, I swept them 4 times. You know, it's just the maintenance and, you know, it's pay me now or pay me later, and I don't mean me.
No, of course.
If I may,
Mhm.
something I wanted to point
Sure,
out
go
was our existing debt service, up until, let's see, about, in 2016, our existing debt service will be approximately 1.9 million. In 2017, that number goes down to 665,000.
That's it.
Debt service, total debt service. That's not including any of our projections for what we're talking about now, whether it be you know, the highway projects, the capital budget for this year, or the ambulance
Or
project.
capital budgets in the.
For future years,
ensuing
correct.
years,
Right, it doesn't
which will happen,
account for any of
which
those,
as
right.
we know will happen.
It's just what's existing as of now, what's been closed.
See, one of the things that bothers me also is that's absolutely correct, and I commend everybody, including the supervisor, for keeping it that way. We do not do these things, and I've watched it year after year. We don't do it. We keep taxes stable for the residents. We hear their complaints for the remaining year. 2 months after we do it, the school district, taxes go up $400, $500, $600 a house. Not that we should do what they do, but the residents seem to want this, and there's only one way to get it, in my opinion.
I'm not in disagreement with that. However, given the downturn in the economy, with fund balances not increasing, but just diminishing, again, not sustainable. $4.25 million from the general fund was applied, not including some money in the highway fund balance and other fund balances. Can't be done anymore. So the whole nation talks about, let's remove debt and cut spending. That's all we talk about every day on TV. So I don't know why we want to do the opposite. It seems to me that $7 million or $8 million a year for road improvements is more than adequate, to me. I could be wrong.
When you say road improvements, you're also meaning sidewalks and curbs.
Well, once again, in 2010, when you implemented that budget, you had $5 million for road improvements, $2 million for curbs, aprons, and sidewalks, $730,000 in chips, plus trust and agency account money. So you were talking there, that's 7, 8, you were talking $8.5 million. You left $1.5 million on the table. You didn't use it.
And I explain why.
Well, that answer. Your explanation is that you were new and you had to revamp the department.
That's correct.
Doesn't wash with me. Anyway, look, I don't want to belabor it. It's up to the board. You will not get my vote to borrow $10 million. If you have 4 votes, that will accomplish it and you get it done. But I will tell you that the budget I will have to produce in September will, no doubt, in my mind, require layoffs throughout the whole town. No doubt in my mind.
The deputy,
Yes, sure.
Come on up.
I'm new. I'm the deputy for Glenn. Review of the department, which Glenn has had me done for the last 2 months. You're absolutely right, Mr. Supervisor. The department is overstacked with high employees. we should really introduce something like an early incentive or something, because we have employees that are 30, 35 years there. Where if we get them through the system, bring it back down to have 30% laborers and say 20% foremans and stuff would be better. But we've been dealt with 35 years of employees just progressively, increasing their salaries. And
Including
earlier-
one that you just made a highway project inspector for $85,000 and does half his work on a computer. Tell me how that works.
I don't know which,
I'm not allowed to mention names, I cannot mention names.
but I do see other agencies doing early incentives for that reason of cutting back expenses. And I think it would be just something, a thought.
I gave up 2 labor positions for a deputy.
You can give up anything. I budgeted you 142 people, and the town board approved that budget.
That's correct.
You can give anything up, okay? Everyone in your department has a title. Every single person has a title except, did I say 16 laborers? Is that 18 laborers?
Possible.
Okay.
About 20. But if we do this, you look at the seniority, it's just all top-heavy. And they're not gonna leave until they get their 37, 38 years. So we're looking at another 3 to 5 years on most of them.
That's
And
the system.
It's the
There's nothing we
system.
can do about that.
What
But
he's
if-
saying, give an incentive.
Well,
And then maybe we
that-
can
That's correct.
That's
get
not a
them
bad
through,
idea.
and then we don't give the increases like
Right.
we've done. But one other thing with the road program, like Glenn was saying, is out of that money, we're only doing about 20 to 25 miles a year. And we'll never catch up. It's a dog chasing its tail.
But I don't think that any highway superintendent ever talked about catching up. Everything is done as you go forward.
The infrastructure is just completely, it's just collapsing.
Well,
I have a plan with this money, and I know you don't like to use the word catch-up, but this will help us for all the residents who write you letters and me letters about our roads. And I don't think that there'd be any homeowner that wouldn't mind paying a little extra in tax if their roads were repaired.
Yep, that, you could say that,
I could.
but overall, it doesn't work that way. It works that, what is the tax increase on residents overall? Not only highway, but every other budget. Every other budget. So, everybody wants something, because we'll go back to leaf bags. When somebody says, well, how much would it cost? Only costs $5 for leaf bags we give you. Well, come on, I'll give you the $5 right now. But when you add that $5 overall, the budget, then you see what the tax increase is. Look, I have no problem. If times were better, I would think about that. I will not think about, me personally, think about adding that kind of money to a budget.
Times weren't any better 2 or 3 years ago when Dan Ryan was here and you were thinking about the $5 million. Nothing's changed in those 3
Yeah,
years.
it has changed. It has changed.
Roads
It
have gotten
has
worse.
changed. Huh?
Roads have gotten worse.
That's correct.
But
So I don't see
listen,
why you
I,
would
once
copy-
again, I'm one member of a 5-member board.
I don't
I've
know
made
how
my
you feel.
pitch. You will not produce a reasonable budget, a tolerable budget in September. Not possible. Not when you're adding, for the first year, $450,000, and the second year, another $450,000, $800,000, or close to $900,000 in principal, including the amount of money that you need to borrow for these heavy equipment things here, and not including the Comac Ambulance Corps. Now, you tell me, okay, so we as a board said, look, screw the 2% cap. We'll pierce it by a percentage or 2%. I can assure you that if you do this, it'll be a lot more than 2%, 4%. It's what it is. It's what it is.
I think it's a very difficult decision. I don't think anybody is objecting to the way things have been done in the past, but we are getting to a point where we must do something. Whatever we do is gonna cost us money. We just have to do it as reasonably as we can. And, we take your arguments into concern, and we just have to make a decision whether we're gonna do it or
But
not.
just what I'm trying, I'm not, look, it sounds like I'm picking on a highway department. I don't wish to do that. in the last 10 years, highway taxes went up 66%, which tells you they went up 6% average a year. The last 5 years, they went up 5%. So let's just stay there and say, okay, as we go forward, next year highway budget is gonna have a 5% increase, right? Now you wanna add all this money on top of that, and that's just the highway budget. You got 22 departments in this town, every one of them goes up, because of the cost of living alone. We'll never reach your fuel estimates, or the ones that we put in, we'll never reach it, based on the increase in fuel. So how do we do all of this, and at least keep, I don't say tax decreases, I say tolerable taxes. I don't say it. So maybe you fellas, after we get through here, you wanna sit with the controller another day, and you'll find out what I'm saying.
Well, I think now is the time to borrow the money, being that your credit rating is the best, you know.
Do you remember the old program with Senor Wences? He had the dummy here, and he'd paint his hand, and he'd say, easy for you, not for me. So you say borrow the money, easy for you to say.
That's correct.
Anyway, okay, I thank you all, but anyway, I'm sorry I was so dramatic here. What else we got? What about, I didn't talk very in depth with Lou about this here. Maybe some of these small items, you're gonna pay for them right directly. Do you have any opinion on that, Lou?
This is the FCC stuff.
Yeah, yeah. And the pre-emption, just take it right out of the reserve fund for the traffic.
You have reserves throughout the budget.
So the small
That's-
items, you want to take them out. By the way, that shredder, commercial shredder, that's $500,000. Okay? That commercial shredder is to do what, Tommy? To shred people's documents?
I didn't know it was $500,000. I had priced it a lot lower than that, but that was basically, you know, for identity theft, and all people have documents, they could bring them to the MSF facility, but there might be a different way to do that for a lot cheaper money, and it's what's called as a certified burn. You can bring it there, and it's put into the incinerator directly while you're there, and it might be a cheaper way to do it for the residents, so they can get rid of their documents and not have to worry about them being stolen.
But that's government intrusion into people's lives.
It's not intrusion. It's unfortunately the criminals are intruding into people's lives by stealing their identities. And it's a way I'm looking at to do things. It doesn't have to be done tomorrow, but the certified burn might be a way of no cost, and we still get the same end to the means.
I don't know, I just think I have a responsibility to take care of my own documents and not have them stolen.
Unfortunately, the criminals find a way around it.
But why does government have to do what you should be doing for
Well,
yourself?
it's not government. You know, basically, the people do pay taxes to this government. We're just trying to help the people we serve. If there's a way we can do it for almost no money, that's great.
And
$500,000 is
and
way too
there are
much money.
businesses that shred documents. I'll give you 2 or 3 of them, right
Oh,
in the
sure,
county.
there's public companies that go around and do it.
So why does the public have to underwrite that?
Well, I'm talking about for private people stuff, and if you want a commercial entity, you wanted to use it, they'd have to pay, no different they'd pay a regular company today.
Okay, all right.
It's just something to try to combat identity theft of our residents.
So you're talking about some of these smaller items?
Yeah, I'm thinking if, then you have Lou
Without-
look at it, they have, for the town hall, general upgrade, maybe that comes right out of Park's budget. If it can't be sustained there, then we'll take something out of the fund balance, the general fund. The preemption, what do you have in fund balance for the traffic there?
Traffic, 2011 undesignated is about 1.9 million.
So why don't we take that out of there? What's their budget, total budget?
Total budget for traffic?
Yeah. There's more than one budget for traffic.
Right.
But I
Well-
think you can do it. It would be okay.
Lou, could you, we're not gonna do it right at the table, of course, but could you make us a list
Yeah, that's the way to
of
do that.
what items you feel could safely come out of reserves?
Sure.
Without
Yeah,
hampering the reserves in the future,
yeah.
as we talked about, so that we can see, maybe we can, I agree with Supervisor, maybe we
Well,
buy.
in traffic, you have different district budgets, so you have
Right.
to be careful. You can't take one for the other.
And before we make a commitment to that commercial shredder, can we get some prices?
Well, absolutely, everything's open on the table.
Wow, we all run as conservatives, Bob.
I'm a conservative.
It's not very conservative to say, we're gonna put a machine there so you can shred your documents.
No, I happen to agree with you that, that's why I'd like to see what the cost of.
Well, that's why I'm looking into the certified burn, which is no
And I
cost to
would
the
be-
town at all.
I would be much more inclined to say people can bring their,
But it's something to put on the table and at least have a work session that we can discuss it, which we don't have many of, so now we have at least something that we have time here to talk about things. I think it's
Just
time
need to
maybe we
ask
have
a
some more.
Murphy, is you listening?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy, if the town board were able, assuming that we could look at this and give an incentive, the employees who take advantage of the incentive, would you replace them?
I think you would have to
Replace them, but
But
a
you
lower.
replace them at a lower grade.
Understand. John, did you have a executive session matter? No. No? I thought we did. Okay. Anybody want to finish? Okay, I'll move to close the meeting.
Second?
All in favor?
I